Welcome to another edition of Strange Encounters, the podcast. I'm your host, Rick Burgess. Thank you for being with us. I'm host of the Rick Burgess Show. If you would like to find out more about that, we do a 5-hour show Monday through Friday, and all the details can be found at rickburgessshow.com. And we talk about many things, but this podcast is designed to talk about one thing, and that is the supernatural concerning angels and demons. Spiritual warfare, what Scripture says is raging all around us. And the Apostle Paul instructed us that every day, since that battle is waiting on us, that we need to prepare for the battle. So the battle's happening, whether you or I want to participate in that or not, it is going on. So what we hope to do here is to try to help with that preparation, answer some questions, investigate some of these things. We also do a lot of this in men's ministry because there's so much that's happening in spiritual warfare concerning men in our country, the destruction of the headship that God has given to every man, men and women equal, of course, but beautifully distinct. And so we reach and equip and disciple men with a ministry called themanchurch.com. So you can go to that website to find out everything that we do there. And then my wife, Sherry, and I also do a lot of marriage ministry together. And you can find out more about those things by going to burgessministries.com. Today, we've done some of this, but it's time again for us to talk to someone who has been in the middle of spiritual warfare and hear their story and maybe ask some follow-up questions. And today, Brian McLendon is our guest. And full disclosure, Brian and I know each other. We met each other at church. We actually have a Sunday school class together, a Bible study on a weekly basis. And Brian came to the office one day and said, I've heard the Strange Encounters podcast, and I would like to tell you what happened to me. And it was incredibly intriguing what he told me. And I knew right then that he needed to be on an episode. So, Brian, welcome to Strange Encounters.
Thank you so much for having me.
So your story goes back to really, which was a very, very dark time in our society, and that was the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
And this sort of led to you experiencing something supernatural. So why don't you just tell us your story?
I think we kind of have to go back to a little bit of the history to help understand why I feel like it was spiritual warfare I was dealing with while I was in the hospital. My wife and I had marital struggles for many, many years. When COVID hit, we began to reconcile around 2020. As we went through that year of us reconciling, we decided we were going to redo our vows. And so in August of 2021, we went to the beach and redid our vows the same day we had done our original vows. So we were at Panama City, just going to have a little simple thing at the beach with friends. And about halfway through the week, we were going to do our vows on Saturday. I started not feeling good. Mm-hmm. And, back during that time frame, if you've got a sore throat, you have COVID.
Right.
It slowly progressed, but by the time we got to that Saturday, it was really, really bad. I was starting to feel rough. And I had told her I don't feel well. Side note, off the coast was a hurricane starting to come into the beach. So on Sunday when we're leaving to go home, you've got rain and winds coming from this hurricane. It was miserable. I don't even know how we got home. I was in such a weakened state to get home. Now, fast forward, I missed work the rest of that next week, staying at home, just checking. Somebody had given me an oxygen saturation monitor, and I was checking that because I knew my breathing wasn't doing very well. And that had been my biggest issue as I started to have a lot of chest issues and being able to breathe. So now you fast forward to that next weekend, which is the weekend of Labor Day weekend. On that Friday, I was unable to keep my saturations. They were right around 90. And, that's should be 95 or above if you're well. And I'm a nurse as well. And so is my wife. So we were keeping a close eye on this to make sure we were doing the best we could at home. When it got to that Friday, I looked at her and I said, I'm going to need help. This is not something we can do at home anymore. So I went to the hospital, ended up being at a local hospital here in Birmingham. And immediately they knew that I had COVID. I got admitted to the floor. And for several days, it just continued to get worse and worse and worse. And I want to just expand upon the discussion about being in a hospital during COVID, during 2021. This was during COVID Delta phase, which was, I'm being told now, which was one of the worst. At the time, I don't think we realized that. And that progressed over days and days, but the isolation as a patient in those hospital rooms, I mean, you were treated like somebody with leprosy, I can only imagine from back in the day.
Sure.
And I don't blame the healthcare workers. There was a lot of fear going on at that time.
Yeah.
But if something like this is to come up in the future, my message to healthcare workers and others is there's still people and there's still a lot going on with them. So try to do a better job in the future of not isolating someone to the point that, I mean, it just feels like a complete outcast.
Yeah.
Secondarily, we as a family chose not to take the COVID shot. I mean, that's neither here nor there, but I do feel like I was treated differently when people asked that question and they had this look of like, oh no, why didn't you do that?
Right.
That was just a family and decision that we had made. So now we've gone through the weekend. I'm there probably 4, 5, 6 days. And again, it just continues to progress and get worse. I've gone from having oxygen in my nose to now having a CPAP on my face that's blowing pressure and air into my face. And it's not getting better. My lungs are getting worse. I'm having to get up and go to the restroom by myself. I'm in a weakened state. It's awful. I didn't know this until later, but there was no communication with Emily from the facility. And I'll give a little bit more of that here in just a second, but her only contact was with me and what I was telling her was going on.
Right, and just to make sure everybody knows it doesn't know, Emily is his wife. So
yeah, sorry about that.
That's her name, and so she's not getting anything about her husband during this time. So,
well, and you know, I do have my phone, so I'm constantly or daily sending pictures of myself, and as I go back and look at those, you can tell progressively I'm getting worse day by day. I showed those to you when we discussed this the first time.
I've seen the pictures, and it is not looking good.
So after I think 5 or 6 days, they end up. I'm having to reference to make sure I'm getting these days right. I was end up transferred to the intensive care unit because things had gotten so bad. Emily had finally gotten in touch with somebody at administration and said, "Look, they're basically going to kill him unless y'all do something different." So I get moved to the unit. Care is somewhat better, a lot better at some point, but initially it's just better all the way around because you've got somebody right there. My respiratory status continued to get worse. And after about a day or two of being in the intensive care unit, I was on my hands and knees on the bed trying to just take a breath. My lungs, everything felt so tight, I couldn't even take good breaths. And I used to work an intensive care unit at a local hospital, and one of my curses is I was going to be watching that monitor to figure out the numbers and see if I was in trouble.
Right. Because you knew what to look for. I
knew what to look for, and my oxygen level on the screen that I could see was 75% now. That's with all of the oxygen, everything that they have done for me. At that point, I knew my struggle. I wasn't going to be physically able to continue to breathe and maintain life, basically. So I told the nurse, I said, y'all are going to have to intubate me, which means put me on a ventilator.
Right.
At the time, putting on a ventilator was a death sentence.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize that it was anywhere from 15 to 20% chance you were going to come off of that ventilator once you went on it. So the nurse looked at me again. She said, "Are you sure that you want to go on the vent?" I said, "I'm not going to make it if you don't put me on the vent. I'm wearing out. Physically, I'm wearing out. I was so tired I couldn't take breaths." So they intubated me. They sedate me, put the tube in, get the ventilator going. Now is where Emily gets her first communication from the hospital. One of the doctors calls and says, the first words out of her mouth is, "Well, now that your husband's on the vent, we're going to have to," and of course, she was shocked. Like, what?
Right.
He was talking to me and doing this, and now he's on a ventilator. So that's leading up to where I feel like the spiritual warfare began. I mean, not only being everything else that was going on, but for me, it was very definitive once I went on the ventilator.
So we want to hear that part of the story. And before we get into where things begin to happen that will be very hard to explain unless you understand about spiritual warfare, I do want to take this moment to remind some of you out there, because you may be thinking about education with your children. And in the times we're living in now more than ever, this is a major investment to send your child to college, but you also don't want to be using your hard-earned money to invest in an institution that is going to reprogram them or indoctrinate them into things that you oppose. Well, even though it may say the word Christian in the title of the college or a Christian denomination, that doesn't mean anything anymore. You need to vet these colleges out, and I have great news for you. ChristianCollegeGuide.com is a free, easy-to-use resource that does that work for you. It's got an online directory of over 250 Christian colleges and universities. It's a one-stop guide, and you're going to find out about acceptance rates and tuition costs and academic majors, of course. But what makes it truly special, ChristianCollegeGuide.com shows you the school's faith commitments, its campus policies, its spiritual life, all this information helping you find a college that you can trust. It's free and easy to use. Get your free user profile and get started today at ChristianCollegeGuide.com. We're talking with Brian about spiritual warfare. So, Brian, in the story now, you have been put on the vent. You have a severe case of COVID. It's 2021, and they have now, at your request, put you on the vent because you did not believe you could get a breath on your own anymore. Your wife, Emily, is being told this, and what happens next?
Well, some of this that I'm going to discuss is what I knew was going on, and some of it's going to be discussed is what I now know after the fact was going on outside of where I was, because
Right.
I don't have another way to explain that.
Right, I got you.
So I went on the vent. I do remember Emily coming in and talking to me while I was on the vent, sitting down next to the bed, holding my hand. I do vividly remember my daughter was having to have a major surgery during that same time frame. So, hey, let's just pile on here of extra things going on.
Sure.
But I remember Emily asking me, "Are you okay with us going ahead and doing this surgery?" And I gave the thumbs up, like, what am I going to do? Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
And then I don't know how to explain it or what to call it. At some point during that time frame I was on the ventilator for 13 days. Just for those who are not medical, when you get to the 14th day of being on a ventilator, usually they have to make a decision of, are they going to keep that tube in your throat, or are they going to do one where they put it in your neck?
Mm-hmm.
So during this time frame of while I'm on the vent, I wasn't in that room. I don't know how else to explain it other than as I described some of the events that I saw and experienced, that it was a different realm that also included that room. One of the first things that happened when I came off the vent is I was able to speak enough that I told Emily, in the room there's a closet and there's a little cubby area and then there's a window over to the right. And I kept telling her, you got to close that door over there. And she's like, there is no door. What are you talking about? And I said, that door over there in the corner, that's where he was trying to get in. We've got to close that door. And at first she looked at me like I was crazy. Mm-hmm. But as we discussed it with friends at the time, that, spiritual warfare sometimes has areas of weakness, where they like to be. And we know spiritual warfare, demons, they attack when you're weak and you're isolated. And what better place than a hospital? I described that individual or that figure as a dark figure that I knew was trying to kill me. And because they couldn't get into that door, they told me or gave me in some way
communicated to you
that they were going to kill my wife and kids.
Wow. And so is the door to you what you're seeing? They're banging on it. How do you know is it shut? Is it open?
It's slightly open, but you can see the figure outside of it.
And that figure can't get all the way through.
Could not get all the way through.
Right. But they were communicating to you, or the dark figure and whatever it represented says, we're going to kill your wife and your children.
Basically, if we can't get to you, we're going to get them.
Okay.
And again, it's not a direct quote, but that was the understanding. If I can't get in here, I'm going to get them.
Right.
And at one point, Emily had come to my bedside after I experienced that, and I was so relieved that she was there because I was thinking, well, if she comes to see me again, somehow they're going to get her on her way up here.
Right.
And so when I saw her again, I was so relieved. And, also during this time frame, there are other people dying on this unit. Lots of them apparently had come in and died. Having been an intensive care nurse, I could see flashing lights and stuff inside of the unit, and I knew that was code blue or some sort of bad event that people were having to be worked on. So I could see those lights go off, and I could tell other people were being dealt with, like from a medical side. And so this is all intertwined. And I mentioned to you that when I woke up, and now that I go back and I go through these experiences, which there's others that I will talk about, but the three words that kept coming to me were fear, deception, and temptation. It was those scenarios that continued to repeat throughout this. And I had enough consciousness about myself during this time frame to say, how do I keep getting in these bad spots?
Right.
Like, how did I get here? How am I ending up in these places? Another scenario that I mentioned to you was, this is the one I think of as temptation. I'm saying this, all of the ones that I experienced that I dealt with were female in form, or they appeared to be female in form. And this one had what appeared to be like a blue pill, like it was glowing. And there were other people around me, and she was trying to get everyone to take one of these. And I can only say that it had to be the Holy Spirit, because I didn't know what was going on. But it was like I knew not to touch that, like stay away from that. And like, as I woke up in this world later, it was all the people that had taken that pill were now dead, like laid out on the ground.
So there's people dying on the floor. This figure that in your mind would have been some sort of dark female presentation is wanting you to take what it looks like a glowing blue pill, and everybody who took it, you looked and they were all dead.
Yes,
Okay.
like the next morning kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to clarify, when this was happening, I was not in the room. It was somewhere else. I can't say where it was. It appeared to be like an outdoor space, but it was not. It was not in my room.
It did not look like the hospital
No.
room anymore. And you think you may have even been what looked like outside?
Yes.
Okay.
And then
Was it a forest kind of dark situation or a meadow type thing?
it was dark, almost like nighttime, but not like at dusk. It's just enough light.
I got you.
There was other people around, like it was a gathering. And it was like there were trees kind of off in the distance, but it could have been like anybody's farmland type, or you're just out on the field somewhere.
I got you. Yeah.
And that's one of the images and scenarios that I remember the most, as well as what I felt like I believe now looking back was a witch presentation. And you asked me last time, well, how did you know it was a witch? And I was like, well, she kept leading me into these situations that ended up having bad results. And then she just disappeared. And then I'm left there like trying to figure out how in the world did we get here?
Right.
How did this happen? And where did this person go? Like they were just here.
Right.
They presented as somebody that was helpful and they were not. So that's where I feel like deception came in. And then lastly, the one that when you try to explain it to people, and I haven't told this story to a lot of people because there's.
You are right now.
Yeah, I know. Well,
okay.
No, and that's why I came to you because I felt like if I'm going to share this story, it needs to be shared in the correct format.
Right.
And I have shared it with close friends and family, and some people look at you like, "Oh, okay, you're crazy," and others who understand what you and I are trying to discuss go, "Oh yeah, 100% believe that."
Right.
But the last and most vivid scenario for me was I was strapped to a tree, like a lumber that had been cut down. It's laying down, and I'm literally chained to it. And there's this device that it looks like it's going to try to grind up that log or whatever with me on it. And I remember being like cold and shivering, and then there was this, I can only call it a demon because it's the only thing that I can think that a demon would look like is it was in a female figure, and she was attractive, but she was like kneeling down. And when she stood up, it's like she had grasshopper legs. The knees were in the back and came forward. And she had found out she could not kill me. And she was furious. Like how can this happen? We had him right here. Why can we not touch him? And I told you, I don't know if it was an angel or I don't know what it was. I'm here to tell the story. I'm not here really to interpret it because I don't know that that's my goal. My goal is to just let people know what it is that I saw. And someone that I knew that was a male, I don't know exactly how I knew him. And I did say I thought he was somebody's son. I'm not saying it's Jesus. I'm not saying
I get you. There's something in you thought
something new.
Just,
it was a helpful person, that it was somebody that I knew helped me off of that and said, "You can go. They can't touch you."
So did they literally unchain you from it?
Literally unchained me and like helped me get out of whatever this room was. And
They can't do this to you. You can go.
And it's like there were rules.
Mm-hmm.
And
lines the dart people couldn't cross.
And having researched this after all this happened, I realized why that happened. I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm a child of God. I'm a sinner by probably the largest margin. Mm-hmm. And I need Jesus to save me.
Right.
I know that. But to have seen that and now to know that I 100% believe that is why they couldn't do anything. And they thought they had me.
Well, and you're probably, I know how it works, in the church, you're being prayed over. There's people praying for you to be brought out of this. So there's the prayer of the saints. There's the warfare of angels and demons. And you're seeing once again what we even learn in the account of Job, that there were boundaries that were drawn by God that they couldn't cross if you belong to God. And so when you come out of this, I mean, when did you start telling this and people are like, you never left this room, or what was
Well, when I was able to talk and came off the vent,
which was miraculous in,
yes.
in its own self. I mean, everybody, as you said, the percentage of people dying once they went on the vent during that period of 2021 was high.
Yes.
Not many people were coming off of it. I mean, the death rate was high. Survival was low. So that's a miracle in itself that you didn't die.
Yes. And let me address the prayer side. I fully believe there were thousands and thousands of people in prayer for me. And not because I'm special, but it's people that we know, people that we didn't know, people from different countries. I mean, one of the nurses that took care of me, when she saw my son crying at my bedside when I was on the vent, nurses are supposed to hold it together in rough situations. She told me later, because we went and had lunch, all of us together, she said, when I saw your son crying at your bedside, she goes, I had to hold it together until your wife and son left. She goes, and I went in the break room and bawled my eyes out. She goes, I immediately called my relatives that live in a different country and said, you have to pray for this man. He cannot die. So I fully believe prayer is what saved me, not anything that I did. It's just a miracle. And I know that because the nurses that didn't even take care of me in that unit would come in and talk to me and say, we can't believe you're still here. Just a side note, the other diagnosis that I had, not only did I have COVID, I had pneumonia and I had ARDS, which is adult respiratory distress syndrome, which is as bad as you can get it. It damaged my lungs. It was as bad as you can get it and still be here. But to answer your question, when did I start discussing? As soon as I came off the vent, I asked my wife, I was like, how did I get back in this room? And she said, you've been here the whole time.
You never left this room.
And I said, no, I was not here. I've been somewhere else. I mean, I was literally driving a truck. I was doing different things in a different area that involved all of this stuff that we were talking about. So the idea of waking up and having never left that room or whatever it was, a different realm, I really just don't know what else to call it.
Well, there's things there. First of all, you think about, I mean, I'm not the call on this and we're not making this call, but, there's people who've had near-death experiences where they actually left their bodies. They could see their bodies. It could be you were so close to death that you may have left your body at one point. You certainly were engaged in some sort of spiritual warfare. I know there's going to be people that are listening to this and watching this. They're going to say, well, it was the drugs you were on. You were on all these drugs, and that caused you to hallucinate. You both are, your wife and yourself, you guys are well educated on all of this. So being nurses and dealing with even intensive care, the things that medications can do. With your expertise, why did you not just think, well, it was just something that happened that the drugs caused?
When you have a dream,
Yeah.
some of them are more real. And
no doubt, yeah.
And there are smells, sounds, and different things that if I hear or smell them, I'm right back there. Like it's almost like an indicator. And I showed you a clip of a sound that was familiar to what I now.
Yeah, you got to tell everybody about that. If you don't mind.
No, that's fine.
Not, yeah.
No. It's kind of hard to explain because I can best describe it as a high-pitched violin that at some point is soothing, but it's also eerie. That's the best way I can describe it. But Rick, when we first met, asked me if I had heard or sensed anything like what I had sensed while I was in the hospital. And yes, there are times that comes up. It's not all the time, but I was watching a video of a tornado that was in Wichita, Kansas from a couple of years ago. And it's just a little clip of somebody took, and you can see the tornado in the distance and you can hear the siren, but it's not the whole time. And I showed Rick the precise moment. It's this high-pitched, eerie sound that I can only describe as that's what I heard while I was in this state, realm, whatever you want to call it.
So as far as trying to figure out being on that floor during that time, we've talked about this on Strange Encounters. We see in Scripture, it says we're not called to a spirit of fear. We see Peter describe Satan as a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And I told this on an episode past, but I'm thinking about it during this time because I remember this time. And I was saying, you got to put these things together because if you know anything about predators, they respond. And I told the story about when Sherry and I were in Africa and we were told not to run if a predator approached us, because if we did, we would just be tired when we were dead because it triggers the predator to attack.
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about spiritual warfare, the reason why we're told not to be called to a spirit of fear, not to be anxious about anything, and in my opinion, that is Christ teaching us. That is the Bible teaching us, Holy Spirit-inspired writers teaching us. It triggers the predator in Satan. It triggers the demonic war. And could there have been a time that was more immersed in fear and anguish and anxiety than the pandemic?
Yes.
And of course, you being on that floor where it's death after death after death, we can't figure this thing out. People go on the vent, they never come off. I remember all this. That whole floor you were on, both the beginning floor and intensive care, they're nothing but places of anguish. They usually are anyway, but during that time, I felt like that was just elevated.
Yes.
It was death, it was destruction, it was anxiety, it was anguish, and it was fear. The perfect, rich environment for demonic forces.
Totally agree. And it wasn't just patients. You think about it, the healthcare professionals, there was a sense of fear all the way around. So I don't think anybody walking and treating patients was confident that they wouldn't somehow become ill.
Oh, yeah.
So I applaud the bravery of the people that were in that hospital continuing to work on patients. So
especially like you said, with all it was novel. We had so much misinformation and disinformation. There were so many things against you.
yes.
So did you have anyone, and maybe even your wife, who I know is watching and is here with you, supporting you, but did anyone ever describe watching you toss and turn? Were you screaming out? I know you're on a ventilator, so you probably can't. But I mean, did they see your body responding to anything as if you were in some sort of duress beyond the disease itself?
I would say yes. We always joke when we work in the intensive care unit, little old guys can't keep their clothes on, and they just get real restless and they get real strong when they're in the unit. I was very restless. I constantly was pulling tubes out. They had restrained me at some point to keep me from fighting them. I will say one of the nurses, the one that we talked about earlier, she said I took a swing at her one time.
Oh, really?
And she said, she goes, I got down in your face and said, don't do that again. And she goes, and it's like you recognized who I was. Yes, I was very restless. And I think Emily can attest that she knew something else was going on, so much to the fact that she left my phone in the room and it was on spiritual music the whole time. And so every time she came in, she made sure that was playing. And if it wasn't playing, they needed to turn it back on, or she would turn it back on to surround me.
Yes.
With that.
And it just felt oppressive in the whole area, didn't it?
Yes.
Well, so you now, as you have survived it, and you're a walking, talking miracle, you certainly have some damage on your lungs. We talked about that.
Yes.
You're not back at 100% on that.
No.
You're going to have to fight that the rest of your life. But it's better than where you were.
Than the alternative.
Yeah, but do you almost look at that as like when Jacob, God never put his hip back in place. He could have. The thorn that Paul was talking about, that they carried these constant reminders of their encounter. So do you see almost your lung damage as a reminder that what you experienced was real? The reminder that if nothing else, no matter what you may believe out there, if nothing else, what you have described here today is a beautiful picture of the gospel.
Yeah.
And if it was nothing more than a reminder from God for what you have been saved from, do you look at that every time you have to struggle to breathe a little bit? You remember what you went through, and has that kept you from never forgetting what you learned?
It definitely is a reminder, and there are times I get a little frustrated when I can't do what I used to. Like if I have to, I can cut the grass, which is a big deal for me because I've always liked to do yard work.
Yeah.
So when it limited me in that, I got frustrated. But like you said, it reminds me when this all happened, and I originally told a few people, I basically got the message from them, and I think the Holy Spirit put on my heart, at some point I'm going to want you to share this. And I have not felt that I should share it until we were at church and we were studying Daniel, and we had some things going on in our Sunday school class. We were discussing spiritual warfare. And then I saw your Strange Encounters podcast, and I went, well, okay, that's three things. I recognize that this is what I'm supposed to come and share this.
Yeah. Sometimes God's not subtle.
No, he's not.
He kind of put that together. Well, have you had any more dreams since? Or anything that has happened? Any attempts for the demonic forces to make another run at you or anything like that?
I couldn't say definitively.
Right.
There's always different reasons things happen, and we don't throw spiritual warfare on everything that's
right.
going on.
You have to look around. Don't look around every corner.
But there are times when you go, okay, well, it's not physical, it's not this. Maybe we need to look at, is there some spiritual warfare we haven't noticed, because maybe it's subtle. I mean, spiritual warfare is subtle too.
Oh, yes, it is.
And tries to stay behind the other stuff, so you don't really know what's going on. And I feel like we've seen it a few times. I've felt like I need to pray specifically for certain things, and I do that. And before, I was not aware of that, and I feel like I need to pray for those things specifically.
Well, we're grateful that you took time to be with us here today and to share these things. And, it is something that's real. It's not something, as we always say here, to obsess over, but it's also something not to take lightly and to understand that there is a war that's raging all around us. And we're told by Scripture and the God who created us to prepare for the battle because it is going on. And so, Brian, thank you for being with us on this edition.
Thank
and
you.
thank you so much for sharing your very personal, strange encounter.